What's good, y'all? Welcome to another Anything by Mansa Cannon. I'm Mansa, and today I'm really excited to get my brother on. Not blood, but he is my brother. He's my brother. How? Because when we came to UC, he was a senior, and I was designated to him as his little brother by the coaches. And ever since, we've been very well connected, and I really appreciate all the things that he's done and the connections that he's made with me. And I also want to stress that this guy is a brilliant mind in math and finance, and he is a person who knows accounting. And I want you all to learn and listen closely to who he is, maybe connect with him, because he has a personality that is very, very outgoing and enjoyable. And I'm sure many of you all will see yourselves in him and potentially see yourselves in his role. So listen closely to figure out how you can get into his role. Without further ado, my guy, Isaac Hendricks. How's it going, bro?
What's going on, man? I'm pretty good. How about yourself?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I'm glad to have you on. Glad to have you on. Since I have you, of course, I have to ask you the number one question, which allows me to have you on, which is, do you like your job, man?
Oh, man, I love my career. I absolutely love it. It's something that I kind of fell into by mistake. Accounting was not my first option when I was deciding what major to go into when I started at the University of Cincinnati. I actually took an elective course, financial accounting, and I just loved it. I clicked with it. It came to me, and I've been in accounting ever since.
Okay, sweet. Well, before we get all the way down the path, let's start at the beginning. What was that first job? What was that first profession? And it can be ridiculous that you remember wanting to have as a child.
First job that I wanted to have, does NBA player count? Because
Absolutely.
I wanted to play in the NBA. I think my favorite player was Grant Hill. I'm from Detroit.
Yeah.
And this was post, the Jordan era. And Grant Hill was supposed to take over that. He was supposed to carry the mantle. He got injured. Yeah, some issues happened. It didn't quite pan out that way. But initially, the first thing that I wanted to be was an NBA player. I wanted to play in the league.
Yeah.
I wanted to buy my mom a huge mansion and all that good stuff,
Yeah. So for anybody who don't know, Grant Hill was a dog, but many of us actually do know him because we've seen his later version. But I question if it was that bad, because honestly, those injuries made him more diverse. And we got to get on that conversation. That's a whole different convo. But that's my little 2 cents. Grant Hill still had an excellent career. He just really was amazing early on. So my guy was expecting to be high flying and everything.
Well, he was when he was with the Pistons. It's just not so much once he moved over to Orlando.
Yeah. So everybody here he's from Detroit. And as a Clevelander, apparently we always get paired up as very similar groups of people.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been to Cleveland a couple times. I'm sorry.
What was it that made you decide that you wanted to no longer be an NBA player?
Probably once I stopped growing.
I wanted to say
it. Yeah, I mean, one of my one thing that I'm good at is being able to adapt to my surroundings. I often look around to figure out what's the best. Like, oftentimes I'll ask myself, like when I'm trying to do something, what's the best approach? And oftentimes when I do that, I'll look around to see who is where I want to be. And then I'll go ahead and duplicate that. And I noticed that the NBA players were at least 6'1", 6'2", 6'3". The best NBA players were around 6'5". Michael Jordan was 6'5", and then 6'7", 6'8". And there were a couple guys in my high school that were 6'5" plus, and I couldn't do anything with them. So I had to figure out I had to take another door in life. NBA player was not, in the cards, unfortunately.
Okay. Now that we got the NBA player out the way, what was the first profession you wanted that was not connected to entertainment?
Oh, man. I wanted to be an athletic trainer, right? Since I figured out early on that I wasn't going to be able to play professional sports, I wanted to work on athletes. I wanted to be somewhere. I wanted to be involved in the sports arena. And that was actually the very first, that's what I declared my major as when I was a freshman at UC. It was athletic training. I got accepted into the athletic training program. So that was the first position that I wanted once, I hung up my NBA dreams.
Okay. At what age was this that you started to get that interest in becoming a physical trainer?
I'd say lightly around late junior year of high school, going into senior year of high school. And then obviously once I started college, I just went straight into that major, that degree, just because I knew that I wasn't going to make it in the NBA. I did have some, like you said earlier, we ran track. I had some dreams of running in the Olympics, but the job that I was going to fall back on was going to be athletic training.
Okay. And I do remember you mentioning that because we'd be in a trainer room. You were talking to me about that one time. When did that shift and what caused that shift from, that seems like a significant difference. And I know you said that you fell into becoming an accountant. So let's stay in college before we get there if this isn't where we're going. So what was that shift that you switched from physical therapist to what and why?
It went straight from athletic training, physical therapy into accounting. So I realized that I don't like working on sweaty people. If you want me to be blunt, that's the case, because typically, when you're in athletic training, some of the things that you have to do is, massage, palpate. You have to wrap legs and feet and all that kind of stuff. And in lab, this was fairly early on, once we were learning how to do stirrups and figure eight taping. I got this really big guy, and he took his sock off, and it just wasn't a good deal. It wasn't a good look. I saw my future flash before my eyes, and I wanted no part of it. So I went ahead and decided to drop that major that major, and I started taking electives just because I did not want to waste time and money without a declared major. So I just took as many electives as possible until I found something that I thought that I may be able to do going forward.
Yeah, but that's such a major shift. Was it like a counselor that made you aware of this? I know you said you started taking classes. What was the trigger that said accounting? Like it's not the same. It's not even the same building. Pretty sure it's a different school.
Different college. Yeah,
exactly.
Ginger Clark was the first accounting professor that I had. She was over financial accounting. And oddly enough, financial accounting is actually what I do. I basically, in financial accounting, it teaches you how to take your real world transactions and transfer them into a financial statement to be analyzed. It wasn't just that the class or the concepts and I clicked and I was able to understand them pretty quickly, but she created an environment that promoted learning, right? I was comfortable with her. Every time there was an assignment that needed to be done or a project that I may have needed help with, granted, because this was my very first accounting course, she was always there to help. Sometimes she would hold my hand and walk me through a case scenario or something like that, but she was always there. So because she was so welcoming, I think I may have attached her kind words and her teaching ability and her ability to connect with students with the profession itself. So I enjoyed my first class overall, from start to finish, from studying, from sitting in class to taking the exam to studying and even being in her office hours.
Did you have that class while you were in the process of transitioning? Is that where it was like, all right, we're going straight to accounting?
Yes. So the major that I actually declared after athletic training was accounting. So the financial accounting course that I took was in between me not having a major and me majoring in athletic training.
Yeah. Let me make this quick disclaimer because I'm going to run back to something you said about you don't like dealing with sweaty people. Now, I definitely recognize that because I know I came into the training room. And especially if somebody gets injured in the middle of a game, you got to take care of them. You got to massage certain spots to make sure you get those knocks out and work magic. And it's absolutely disgusting to some people, but it's needed. And we appreciate it. I'm sure you got put on that training table and was happy that somebody wasn't thinking all finicky like you're talking about. but it ain't just you, because I'm gonna keep it 150. I want to be a doctor. And then I recognized I don't like blood like that. And I wanted to deliver babies. And once I recognized all that came with that, I was like, oh, I don't want to deliver babies and I don't want to do this. I need to figure something else out completely.
Right. Yeah.
Well, running back to the professor, was she like a mentor? Because I know you said you were going to her during office hours. I don't know if she actually became a formal mentor to you, or you just heard her and you really appreciated the content that you were getting from her at the time.
I don't know if I would call her a mentor per se, because I think the mentor title involves a long-lasting relationship where you constantly check in with each other. So I have gone back multiple times, I think within the first 5 or 6 years after graduation, to talk to her and tell her thank you. And because I'm definitely appreciative of all the time that she took. I think I was in her face more than any other student in her class. But I don't think, I don't really speak to her now. And I believe she moved out of state. So I don't know if I would say mentor, but she was definitely influential in me becoming an accountant and being where I am today. Without her, I don't know what I would be doing.
Gotcha. Okay.
She made the class fun.
Well, you're mentioning accounting enough, and the fact that you stayed in pretty much the same title this whole time and you've continued to grow, even though the title appears to be the same. I want to make sure it's clear to everyone what accounting actually is. So go ahead and make that plain for me.
Just to go into what accounting does, or what?
Yeah. What does accounting do?
So basically, as an accountant, what we're supposed to do is, what we do is we take the transactions that go on a day-to-day basis, a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, an annual basis, and we convert those into financial statements that are easy to analyze, right? So everyone has heard of an income statement or a balance sheet. Your balance sheet is going to be your financial position, how your company is doing at a certain point in time. How much cash do you have, on hand? Who owes you? Your accounts receivable. Who do you owe in your accounts payable? How much money do you have as a shareholder, as an owner under stockholders' equity? How your business is doing? How are you selling your product? Right? Because we all, once you start a business, you're selling a product or a service. Well, how well are you doing? Right? The accountant is there to show you exactly how you did in the prior period. Right? So being an accountant, you have to abide by certain rules, what we call GAAP, which is the generally accepted accounting principles. And following these guidelines, it provides a framework for us to take the transactions and the activities that happen on the operations side and develop them into statements that are easily readable and that we can all analyze.
What type of person decides they want to be an accountant?
Well, I can tell you why I like it, right?
Yeah.
Because everything has to fit. Everything has a place. I'm not the most creative, I don't have that creative mind. Like there are some people who just have like that third eye that could look at like a room and say, well, you know what would look good on that wall and what would look good on that wall. I don't have that. I'm more tangible. I need to see something. Things have to make sense. In accounting, every debit has a credit. Like everything equals out, everything balances. And I think the fact that because everything balances, it makes it, I'm more comfortable working that way because I know when there's a problem. And typically at this point in my career, I know how to solve it. So I think the overall balance and the fact that everything has to fit, everything has its place. That's what kind of draws me to it because there's little nuance, right? If there's nuance, then there's probably fraud.
You said, if you ain't watching it, you missed what just happened. You just heard a voice say it like that. All right. Well, when you're talking about this, it's just making me think. When you were in college, what was it that attracted you to this? Because for a person in accounting and for a person who's never been in accounting, the truth is you're pretty much dealing with numbers all day. You're looking at spreadsheets. You're talking to people, making sure their numbers are correct, making sure fraud isn't taking place in the company, making sure embezzlement isn't taking place in the company as well. And with that being said, what was it that was attracting to you? Was it, I know I mentioned that you like math. Was it the attraction to math? Like, what was going on that was like, oh, this is cool, and I want to do this with my life?
Oddly enough, there's a common misconception that with accounting, there's a lot of math involved. While there is a lot of math, it isn't complex math, right? So when I hear people say, "Oh, you must really love math," I'm thinking advanced math, your calculus, your trig and all that good stuff. Well, all I do is I add, subtract, multiply, and divide. There isn't, every now and again, I may do some elementary algebra where I'll have maybe 3 knowns and 1 unknown, 1 variable. But there actually isn't a lot of complex math. Now, granted, it's with numbers, so you're working with numbers all the time. But accounting is more conceptual based than it is just straight math. It's not how much money. It's not the numbers themselves that's important. It's it's the story that the numbers tell you, right? So it's the ability to look at a financial statement, look at a trend of 18 months or a 12-month trend, and be able to dictate or project what's going to happen the next 12 months, the next 18 months, right? It's being able to look at your profit ratios, right? Your GP, your general profit ratios, and be able to identify potential deficiencies in your product line, or the way that you're doing business. Maybe you haven't made enough money to cover your wages, right? So it's more so about what the numbers tell you than it is just jotting down. Okay, I sold $100, or I made $100 in revenue today, or $200 in revenue yesterday. It's more so, well, what's going to happen if I continue on this trajectory? What's going to happen, a month from now, a week from now? Because that's not a week from now, but a month or a quarter from now, because that's essentially what your shareholders want, right? Because the income statement is actually for your shareholders. They want to be able to predict, future success in a way that, the best predictor of the future is the past.
And a great investor appreciates a person that can provide those projections for us.
They pay pretty handsomely,
Exactly. Well, with the projections, I'm just curious to know, because I know other people are curious as well. What are some of the stories that you're getting? Like, give us a cool story or something interesting that you may have been able to project, and it unfortunately or fortunately came true because of what the numbers were telling you. Because when somebody hears numbers, some people can understand what you mean by it, can tell you a story, and some people may not. So I definitely want the people who don't fully understand what you're saying to grasp it, because they might actually love that.
Well, I'm not sure about exciting stories. I mean, for me, because exciting is relative, right?
True.
What I find exciting is being able to predict windfalls and pitfalls.
What's
right?
a windfall?
When I say windfall, it may not be the proper definition, but when I say windfall, I'm thinking, how is a company or a facility or a specific location doing business in such a way that it's making itself more profitable than the other businesses that are similar to it within the same company, to the point where those other facilities need to copy the one that's profitable, right? Because oftentimes what you'll have within the company is you'll have multiple locations or multiple facilities that do the same thing, just in a different area, right? And it may be like a best practices where you'll have a operations director over in Lima that's just knocking it out of the park, but there's an operations director or a facility that's in Cincinnati that isn't doing so well, right? So the best way to know is to look at like your key performance indicators, right? You'll be able to see, well, what's going on in Lima? Why is Lima's bad debt only 2% while Cincinnati's bad debt is 15%? And when I say bad debt, I mean the money that you had expected to receive but won't, right? So being able to look at to create the financial statements and to see exactly the patterns, right? To look at the patterns and be able to identify places that are performing well and places that aren't, and to be able to duplicate those best practices in order to make both facilities profitable.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, let's continue down the path. You're in college because for everybody who doesn't know, he's been in accounting for over 10 years. So you have a lot of experience, and that's what you're getting. That's what you're hearing on somewhat of a high level, his perspective and the things that he's known and what he knows. I want you to identify as you're going through college, were there any pivotal classes that really impact you the most currently in accounting? You know what I mean? Like some classes just mean more than others in college and they stand out the most. And you're like, man, I use that class all the time. And I'm so glad I had that one.
100% financial accounting, Ginger Clark. It was because that's exactly what I do. I'm a corporate accountant, and I deal with the finance, the financial accounting side. With a degree, with an accounting degree, there's multiple things that you can do. You can be an accountant, corporate accountant. You can be a tax accountant. You can be an auditor. There are a lot of different things that you can do with that degree. For me, because that first class clicked with me so well, I decided early on that that's what I wanted to do, which is great because, when you're doing one thing over and over and over and over again, you get better at it. You become more comfortable. And if you enjoy it, your job ceases to become a job, right? It becomes a little bit more of, I don't know if I want to say a hobby, but it's something that you look forward to.
Absolutely. Did you participate in any organizations in college that were connected to your current position? Did you have any actual internships, anything like that?
I participated in the local NABA, National Association of Black Accountants, UC chapter group. I was the director of membership, I believe. It's been a while. So I was able to connect with some like-minded future professionals within that group. Internships and co-ops, I did not. Unfortunately, I didn't understand the importance of interning and co-opting until I was a junior in college. And by that time, it was a little bit too late. Oftentimes, at least on UC's campus and what I was told, because I asked, the co-ops typically start around sophomore year. And I was, this had to be my fourth year because I had a 5-year degree. I was too late for them. So unfortunately, I wish I would have. I think that's a great way to get your foot in the door. Not only do you have an opportunity to build relationships with people that may be your future employers, but also, it's another opportunity for you to learn from someone who's doing what you want to do. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to take part in any interning, but anyone who is who thinks that they may lean into this profession, and if you're in college, I would definitely say go ahead and try that out because oftentimes they pay too. So it's usually not an unpaid internship.
Absolutely. If you deal with money and I'm working with money, you gonna give me some
pay
money.
Pay me.
Well, I'm sure. Have you? Well, I don't say I'm making an assumption. I want to know: have you actually had any interns under you that would have been you in college? Like, because I'm just curious to know what is the. I know that sounded confusing. I want to know what is the intern doing when he's in an accounting degree. Like when they go off and they do that co-op program, and what are they actually doing for these organizations?
Well, I can tell you what an entry level person would typically be doing, right? It's the basics, right? When you don't have a lot of experience, typically you'll be partnered with. At least this is my experience. It's anecdotal. Okay. Typically, what will happen is you'll be partnered with someone who does have said experience. And excuse me. So what will happen is you'll be given assignments, but they'll be closely watched, right? So in accounting, what we have what are called journal entries, right? And journal entries is basically how we take the your revenue and put it into the system, right? So if you went out and you sold 100 water bottles at $1, you have $100 in revenue, right? So the journal entry would credit your revenue and then debit your AR. Like that's the journal entry that we'll put into the system. Then once we run our reports, you'll see revenue at 100, AR at 100, right? So you'll perform, and every transaction is done that way, just hitting different accounts, right? So what you'll do oftentimes is you'll have that intern will be helping prepare those journal entries. Now, typically they don't post them themselves. They'll have a senior or someone else that's above them look at the journal entry to make sure that, okay, is the right account hit? Are you using the right departments, the right locations? You know, there are other things that intern wouldn't know just because, you know, they're not experienced. But typically what'll happen is you'll have someone kind of reviewing your work before it's posted and before everyone can see it. Because essentially, you know, in accounting, what I like most about it, one of the things that I like most about it is the visibility, right? When I book a journal entry, when I book revenue, the CFO sees it. You know, when I book AR, when I book fixed assets, everybody sees it, you know, and I like that accountability. I like being the person that when you're looking at a balance sheet and you've seen that fixed assets has increased over 10% over the past, you know, month or so. Well, I know why, because we bought a couple trucks in our fleet, you know, so that's the reason why we see an increase, you know, and the same goes for, you know, AR and whatever it may be. So I like that added that responsibility. So it's kind of like the intern would have the very first step to that type of responsibility, because what you do matters.
Yeah. All right. Well,
if that makes sense.
It does. Now people know exactly what I was looking for, which is I wanted people to actually see what they could be doing as an accounting intern. Now that we just graduated college, what's going on? What's that move? Did you already have a job, or did you have to go find one after you graduated?
So I graduated, I think early June, and I had my first professional accounting position late June. So about 3 weeks, 3 weeks time. I don't know if you remember, but I was a janitor in college. I cleaned up all of the garages, and I guess you didn't know. Yeah, I was a janitor all through. I started freshman year and finished my fifth year as that guy who cleaned up all of the beer bottles that the frat guys left.
I remember this. That was petty that you had to add the fraternities to that, but anyways.
It's true, you know.
And that wasn't our fraternity, so it doesn't matter. So the thing is
right, no, true, but
I do remember that now, yeah, because I remember thinking at the time, I do not know how this guy, because mind you, he was a full-time athlete as well. I definitely did not compute. I'm like, how is he out here doing this and doing 2-a-days? And now the season's coming to an end. He's frankly preparing for championships, as we all are. We're exhausted, and we're trying to make sure that we're preparing for finals, not just the finals in the meet, but finals for our education. So I just never understood how you're able to do that. But that also helped with paying off college for you at the same time while you were there, right?
To a degree. I was able to earn a partial scholarship, but unfortunately, I was one of the many who graduated on Sally Mae. Sally Mae and I are like this. Well, she thinks we're like this, but yeah, I mean, anything worth having is worth working for. Mm-hmm. So it was a stressful. It was fun, but at times, you know, it was a little stressful. But you know, I was able to do it. I think, like you said, I had full-time student. I worked about 30 hours a week cleaning the garages, and then you know the full-time athlete. But I think like I remember seeing a long time ago. There was an interview with Will Smith. It was one with Tavis Smiley. I don't know if you ever seen this one or not.
Of course, but, I love Will Smith.
okay, great. Me too. At the time, he was the number one actor in the world, right? I think he was the most lucrative. He had I don't know if this was when Bad Boys 2 came out. I can't remember exactly when it was. But Tavis Smiley was having this interview, and he asked him, you know, well, what is it that separates, you know what I'm going with this?
Yeah,
what is it
keep going.
Exactly. Yeah. He said, well, what is it that separates you from everybody else? Why are you so successful and everybody else isn't? Favorite quote of all time. And he goes, Will Smith says, well, the only thing that I see that's different between me and everybody else is that I'm not afraid to die on a treadmill. You may be smarter than I am. You may be faster than I am. You may be stronger than I am. You may be better looking than I am. You may be better than me in 99 out of 100 categories. But if you and I get on a treadmill, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to get off first or I'm going to die, because under no circumstance will I ever be outworked, right? So I take that to heart. It's my favorite quote of all time. And to be honest, and I'm in boardrooms, right? In my last position, I had to give the financial presentation every month to the CEO, to the CFO, to the controller, which is like the director of accounting, to the accounting manager, to the operations director of the facility or of the LLC, and also the regional director, right? I had to give the financial presentation to all of them and answer questions as I gave the presentation, right? And as you know, when you're giving a presentation to subject matter experts, you have to know your stuff. Because, if I was to give an accounting presentation to a group of designers, I can cover holes with nonsense, and they would never know because they don't understand GAAP, they don't understand the principles, they don't understand finance. But when you're sitting in a room with the CFO who doesn't like the numbers that you put up in front of him, because I used to put it on a projector, right, and we would all stare at it. Then there's going to be questions, and I have to prepare myself for those questions, right? I have to have answers, because the more answers that you have, the more knowledgeable you look about the work that you completed, right? Because if you get asked a bunch of questions that you don't know, then the confidence in their confidence in you or your ability to do your job kind of wanes, right? So yes. I enjoy that pressure. I don't know if pressure is the correct word, but I like, so I'm an athlete, right? So I like to perform. I enjoy the thrill, I guess, of it. I'm no longer an athlete. Obviously, I've aged out of that, out of that. But the thrill of competing, the thrill of that nervousness, that the sense of accomplishment, right? I think is the same. It's similar. When you're studying, when you go over your financials, once you book everything, and you can say, listen, this is what it is. This is what that is. This is the reason for this increase. This is the reason for that decrease. It does provide, like I said, a great sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, I can see that. Let's go ahead and take that journey through your career. Was it complicated? Was it hard to get that first job? I know you didn't have to wait too long after college to get that job, but how was that process?
Well, no, it was actually extremely, extremely easy. Right. So I graduated in 2008, and in 2008 is when we had the recession.
Oh, right? I heard it now.
Wow. Yeah. So the thing was, even though the market was just saturated with possible candidates, right, and because it was so saturated, the companies that were thriving, particularly the healthcare companies, they were picky, right. So because they were so picky, they could bring you in at a lower salary than you would have had this been a great economy, right? Yeah. So when that happened, I jumped on it, because one of the things that I learned from my grandfather is take advantage of every opportunity possible, right? This particular company it had a high turnover rate because of the work was, there was a lot of work, right? But for me, I saw opportunity in that. I saw, well, there's a lot of people that can't handle this fire, right? Well, let me go ahead and employ my treadmill analogy and to this, and see if I can withstand the fire or the workload. How I saw how good I would be on the other side, right? And by far, I've probably learned almost as much there as I have post that first position, just because I got a chance as a staff accountant fresh out of college. I got a chance to see the entire income statement, the entire balance sheet. I didn't just work with one set, right? I got to create the cash flows. I got to create the income statements. I got to book all the depreciation. I got to touch everything. And while there were others who I guess didn't want that type of responsibility, I saw it as a challenge, And because I enjoy challenges, I enjoy overcoming them. I was able to pivot that and increase my my accounting skill set, just because there was the opportunity was there.
Okay. Okay. What was it like in that position? Because I'm assuming your LinkedIn shows that you were an accountant, then you were an accountant, and then you were a senior accountant, and then you were an accountant. So I want to make sure it's clear, because of course you were young in the profession. What was the difference between that accountant job and the one that you have now, if there was one? And has there ever been a difference?
So there is. So I've actually had I'm lucky, right? Because at every job every professional position that I've had since I graduated, I've met people who were legitimately cheering for me to succeed. Right. Even when with my first position, it was tough initially until I started to understand the concepts and the way that things work. Even there, the amount of information that I was able to take from there and continue is it's difficult to measure. Right. I thoroughly enjoyed every place that I worked. Right. So the difference is, with that said, so the difference is, when I first started, I was a little bit more on that intern side, right? I wasn't an intern, but the work that I had was reviewed, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. And with that said, there's opportunities for mistakes if you're doing something that you're not comfortable doing, that you haven't been doing for years, right? So that very first role was perfect, was a perfect introductory to professional accounting, right? So after I moved from my first role, the second was with one of the largest retail businesses in the world, actually. So the scale was much larger than what I was used to. With that, I learned a lot of how to do the accounting for publicly traded companies, right? So you have what's called SOX, right? The Sarbanes-Oxley. A law which I think was passed back in early 2000s due to the fraud and securities fraud with Enron and I think Tyco.
What did you say SOX stands for? What was that acronym?
Sarbanes-Oxley. It's named after Sarbanes-Oxley.
Okay.
Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, but basically it was passed in order to combat the potential fraud that happened with Enron, right? Enron, I don't know if you remember, but due to their fraudulent practices, their shareholders lost over like $74 billion, within a span of like 3 or 4 years.
I remember.
So there was additional laws that were created to make sure that the financial statements fairly represented what actually happened, right? So I got introduced to that realm, which is completely different than when you're working in the private sector. Right, or even in the private sector. So once I moved from there, the third position that I had, which is my last job, I think I probably learned more about individual LLC accounting. I had, I want to say, 6 or 7 LLCs under my belt, and I was also responsible for a number of other facilities. I had to do all of the accounting for them. When audit season came around, I was the primary contact with the auditors, which I don't know if you know it, but it requires, when you're going through audit, it requires a whole lot of report running, a lot of information gathering, and a lot of answers to audit questions. And if you don't understand accounting, if you don't understand your industry, if you don't understand how your software works, then you're going to have a really tough time, right? So I think all my prior experience kind of built me up to where I was in my last position, because if you think about it, in order to fix a computer, you have to know how it works, right? The same thing goes for in accounting. When the auditors are coming, they're asking, well, why is your revenue this, and why is your expenses this, and why is your bonus this? You have to understand exactly how, because it's a framework, how everything relates to each other. Right. Yeah. So in my previous position, I did that. I learned how to present, because I was presenting financials to people who knew what they were talking about, who knew exactly what they were looking at. Right. Because very rarely am I the smartest guy in the room. I refuse to be the hardest, or I always want to be the hardest worker, but I'm not always the smartest. Very rarely am I. So, with that said, iron sharpens iron. So, being, that close to the CFO and seeing how he thinks, seeing how the CEO thinks, which is, it's difficult to explain. You kind of have to be there or have like a mentor to kind of explain it to you. But it's the experience gained was invaluable, right? So as a senior accountant there, the place that I'm at now, I actually chose this place because they started to build out the accounting department. Prior to me joining, all of their accounting was outsourced. So I don't know if you know anything about consultants, but they're very, very expensive. So they decided to bring all of their accounting in-house, and I was the very first accountant that they brought in. So what I wanted to do was I wanted my fingerprints on everything financial within the company, right? I wanted to create the processes that determined, what reports ran on what day, what the reports looked like, what did the account reconciliations look like, what were the workarounds. I wanted to be the guy that when there's a problem that needs to be troubleshooted, I think I'll talk to Isaac. Isaac knows it, right? And I've been here for a little over a year, and that's starting to develop because actually what I did was all of the stuff that I learned from my prior job, from my prior place of employment, I literally took that up, brought it over here, and placed it down, right? So I'm taking all of the knowledge that I've gained over the past several years, and I'm employing it here, right? Because it was the accounting department wasn't created already, I get to help create it. That ownership, like I said, I think it's a continuing thing. That ownership is what I like.
So is it because it sounds like you're doing more, especially because I know for a fact when you're building something, it's a whole lot more. And you also have to create the processes, establish the systems. And I'm just curious, is the fact that you're establishing these things, is that why the title is just plain? And as those things established, the title will change? Are there different titles? Or I know like project manager, you can have a project manager 1, project manager 2. I knew that was coming. If you hear that loud thunder, it's because a lot of noise going in the background. It's a big storm outside. There's a project manager 1, project manager 2, project manager 3, and then you continue to go up the ladder. Is that a thing with accounting? And for general eyes, it just says accounting, but with in-house, because you're usually not the only one. You may be the only one here, but in other companies, there are other accountings in the accounting department, and each person potentially does something different or plays their own role, right?
Yes, you're correct. So the thing with, so I kind of approached this position in the company that I'm with now the same way that I approached my very first one. I saw an opportunity, right? So because there was no accounting department, they didn't really have a title for the person in this role, right? There was no accountant. And when I saw that, to me, the title wasn't nearly as important as the responsibilities and the career advancement. So the company that I'm with, when I started, we had about, I want to say 12 to 15 locations. Within a year, we had about 30. Within a year and a half, we're at 50. And by the end of this year, starting next year, we'll have around 70. So there's the growth is exponential, right? So I saw I continue to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I am on track for an assistant controllership, manager, all that good stuff. But I saw the possibilities, right, of what's going to happen if I get into this role and I help mold it and even maybe call a reporter to, the IH report. Isaac Hendricks is my name. What I can do with that type of responsibilities, right? I position myself or put myself in a position to acquire the controllership or the assistant controllership, which is what I want. It's the possibility for advancement was greater with where I am now, just because of the sheer volume of what I'm facing. So typically, I don't know if I answered your question or not, but there is a hierarchy when you come in. Typically, it's like it could be and it varies, company to company. It could be junior accountant or accountant, junior accountant, senior accountant, county manager, assistant controller, then is usually your VP of finance maybe, and then your CFO. So essentially, we're all under the CFO's umbrella, which is of course under the CEO.
Okay. You said accountant, then junior accountant. Junior accountant is above accountant.
It varies. Typically, if there's a junior accountant, a senior accountant, there may not even be an accountant title, right? It's not set in stone. It's basic. It's based off of how that company constructs their hierarchy. Mm-hmm. So it's not. It could be. There's no junior accountant here. There was no junior accountant in my last position, but there was a senior accountant. You know what I mean? So you can it's Mr. Potato Head. You can mix and match. You can it's up to HR and the head of the accounting department, which is usually like the CFO.
I understand. Okay. Well, let's talk some money, man. Let's talk money. So we went through 4 different roles, and I'm really curious because I definitely want to talk money because I know you were in different types of industries, but it seems like many of them have been health related in some form or another. But then it also appears that there was a corporate connection and then a disconnect from corporate connection currently. And I know that sometimes the secret to get a salary raise is to go from a smaller company to a larger company, and then they'll give you that boost just because, frankly, they bring in more money. But I'm curious to hear the salaries based off of different positions, because I know that one of those, that second company was massive, is massive. So what was that first salary range, or what was your first salary that you had when you first got out of college?
I'm not sure that my specific experience is the norm, just because I came out of college during a recession.
Yeah.
But I will say that before the recession hit, and I was looking at salary ranges coming out of college, depending on if you have your MBA or if you have your CPA, it can increase your earning potential exponentially. But you're talking at least about 45 thousand is typical. And again, that varies based on your geographical region. But within like Ohio, I think if you jump on salary.com or Indeed or something like that, I think you'll see entry level around 40 to 45. Your seniors, and again, this is partly anecdotal, but also it like you said, it depends on the resources of the company, what they can actually afford. You can get anywhere from like that, maybe the entry, but you can go up 55, 60. The median salary as listed on the labor statistics, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is around 73,000, right? Yeah. So that median includes 4 or 5, maybe 6 years of experience. The more experience you have, obviously, the more money you'll make. And one of the good things about accounting, one of the reasons why I think it's easier to increase your salary with the number of years that you work with accounting is, my personal belief is because accounting is accounting no matter where you go, right? What I learned at my first job, I'm still doing now, right? The industry is slightly different. It's the same thing that I did in the retail company. Like it's accounting is accounting, GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP is GAAP no matter where you go. The software may be different. The way that you generate your revenue may be different, but the way you record your revenue always stays the same, right? So your experience is constantly compounding on what you already learned, and it's to me it's just easier to become a much more sharpened professional in accounting because you're hitting the same nail, right? Now, there's variations like if you're in acquisitions or if you're constantly bringing on companies, you have to be flexible to adjust with customer demands. If you're heading into a new geographical area, or if you have a new product or something like that, you have to learn, well, how do I adjust my work papers to account for these changes? But essentially what you're doing is you're constantly getting better.
Yeah. All right. So what was that discount price they got you for at the first job?
Let's say it wasn't 45.
All right, you seem nervous. Look, I was 30. Everyone knows this at this point. I was 30,000 coming straight out of college. And
straight out of college, I was supposed to be at 42. Let's say I wasn't at 42.
You ain't that, bro. We're 13 years away out at this point.
True. So the first job I had, I was making 35,000.
Okay. Boy, I worked hard to get to 35. Do you understand? It took me 4 years. It took me 4 years, and that when I went from 31 to 5, holy crap! I had an extra meal that day. That made
extra meal.
Look, okay, so people who know me know that like a big part of like raises comes with the meal that I'm gonna get. It's like, all right, I can eat out one more time this week, or when I go to Red Lobster, I'm not getting the chicken Alfredo. Don't nobody want chicken Alfredo, ladies, gentlemen. When y'all go on dates, the chicken Alfredo is the immediate go-to. That's gonna be a full portion, but it's also only $12 to $13, sometimes $15. Now I can get that Admiral Feast or whatever I want. So I was like, I'm gonna go give me a nice little meal now. I was so happy. 35 meant the world to me when I finally made it there 4 years later.
Like I said, that was during the recession.
Yep.
And it took me about 3 years because I had a great boss. My controller was awesome. I still talk to him or every now and again. But I love the guy. But he actually went to bat for me, and he was able to get me like a $6K raise within like the first 2 or 3 years, which was a lot because there was a hiring freeze, i.e. recession. They weren't handing out raises, but he went to because of our relationship, and he saw the work ethic that I had. That's something that he took it upon himself to do.
But you also were doing a great job of saving the company money. Like part of your job is making sure the money is in the right place. And so they were getting a discount for you the whole time. So the money that you were always supposed to get paid, he essentially was just like, all right, it's time to go ahead and give the guy what he really actually earned at this point.
Yeah, but right? Often yes and no, because there's essentially two different sides in business, right? You got your operations side, and you have your what I think is your operations side, and your accounting side, your financial side. And oftentimes, what drives the financial decisions is not only the current bottom line, but what you project the bottom line to be 5 years from now.
Okay.
So when you're in a recession, you don't necessarily know when you're not going to be in a recession.
True.
Right? Even if you do well for a year, it's not the short term, right? It's business is always long term. So while they were getting me at a discount, and also, I mean, I even say that loosely because I didn't know what I was doing, right? I was book smart. I knew accounting from a book perspective, but as you know, reading a book and actually doing are two different things, right? So looking back at it, even though the incoming salary for a entry-level accountant is a lot more than 35 in general, it's kind of I see it as a little bit of a wash just because of the amount of experience that I gained from that first job is very hard to measure. So I push back on you just a little bit because you kind of go with how the business is going. Right. And we weren't doing extremely well. So it does make sense to a degree.
All right. Second job, you took a major leap. Not necessarily, I don't know whether the pay was a major leap, but it seems like it was a major company that you switched over to. So I'm just curious, what was that salary range or whatnot when you switched companies?
Between 40 and 50.
Okay.
Right. So the thing with that second position is experience. Right. Unfortunately, sometimes you'll find, if I'm talking to someone who's in high school or someone who's in college, I think it's important to identify, especially early on, that your experience is going to matter more than the amount that you're paid at that given time, right? It's how can you position yourself, put yourself in a position to where you're the most lucrative possible. And sometimes that requires you to sidestep, right? Sometimes every now and again, it may require you to take a step back. But what you want to do, you always want to keep your eye on the prize. Is this next position going to help propel me to the next level, right? Because you can have a position where all you do is book revenue and accounts receivable, making, $40,000 a year coming, or let's say $48,000 a year fresh out of college. But if that's all you're doing, then your skills are limited, right? When someone tells you to book depreciation, or someone tells you to analyze a cash flow statement, well, I don't know how to do that, but I know that revenue goes there and AR goes there. You know what I mean? So you have to look at your potential employees or employers from a macro perspective. Yeah. Look at the big picture. Is it what makes the best sense long term? Similar to how businesses do when they're determining whether they should pay you $35,000 or not. It's the long term that you treat yourself, you treat your career, you treat your profession like your own business. What's going to help me? What's going to help me in the future?
And if you've been following me, you know exactly what I'm about to say. Learn more, earn more. Learn more, earn more. And that's exactly what I'm hearing. Okay, so we're moving to that third job. And wait, when you were at the second job, were you only paid between 40 and 50 during that time period? Okay, so the second job, the third job, where are we on the third job?
Between 50 and 70.
Okay, and is that because the years you were there and the time you just started to go up that ladder?
It was, yes, I was there, I think 4 or 5 years, something like that. And I think at my last position, I was able to, I was exposed to more, I was exposed to a lot more than your average senior accountant, right? Like I said, most senior accountants don't necessarily see the financials as a whole. Sometimes they only look at, if like with larger companies, like the largest company that I work for, because it's so big, there's more red tape and there's a tighter scope, right? You work with this, and once you're done with this, you hand it over to that person, and then they work on it, and you never really get a chance to see the final product. In my last position, I was responsible for this, and presenting, analyzing, and making adjustments, with estimated adjustments to estimates. So what happened was I started off with just I want to say 3 LLCs, and once I understood, once I got the grasp of doing the accounting for those 3 LLCs and presenting on them, because that was also a process. Then I got another LLC. Then I got the biggest LLCs, right? And then it just continued to grow. So my scope of responsibilities continued to grow. And then in accounting, typically your deadlines are static, right? So you'll get additional information, or you may get additional responsibility, but the time that you have allotted to complete those responsibilities may not increase. So what happens is you just get better, right? You just get better and better and better. And that's why I was able to, kind of excel, financially, and also within that company, because I put in the work, right? I put in the work and I earned it, sorry.
No, go ahead. Which what?
No, which I was going to say, I was going to pivot into the position I'm in now, but that the experience that I gained in my last position is invaluable. It's I learned how to present it company-wide. I've given company-wide presentations to, so we used to have a monthly presentation to the entire company, right? We would all go into a room, the head of finance, the head of marketing, the head of IT, the head of HR. We would all get up and we would explain the changes that are happening within the company, right? And I volunteered to get up and do the financial presentation, right? So I did that several times, so that now I'm in a position to, I could literally walk out of my office now and I can I can present on the results from last month, right? Because not only did I do the journal entries to create the numbers, but I've sharpened my ability to speak in a way where people who may not be subject matter experts can consume exactly what I'm saying and understand it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk about what I know that you've primarily been accounting and senior accounting, but you also mentioned controller, CFO. What is that? Is there, more importantly, a cap for what an accountant can make? And does it depend on the corporation or regular business? I'm sure corporation also plays a role, but yeah, so just curious to know, where will an accountant make the most money? First off, and what is the most money an accountant you perceive or you may have heard can make?
I think that's completely, and it depends on the person. It depends on the company. There's a lot of variables that go into, I think, that answer.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't feel comfortable saying a direct number, just because I've seen, I know, because your CFO is sometimes an accountant, right? They may be a CPA. Your CEO may be an accountant, right? With the accounting designation, it helps you be able to look at the financial statements and see the story, right? Which is necessary when you're making business decisions. Having that accounting background helps you forecast. It helps you understand what's going on with my business, right? So you have, in order to be an effective, top tier executive, you have to have that type of background, right? And accounting is one way to get that experience and gain that ability. So with accounting, I mean, you're talking, you can make entry level at 40, 45, controllers at, I think the last time I looked, it was between like 100 and it varies, maybe 110 to 130, 140. It can increase. It can be as much as 150. Kind of depends on the size of your accounting department. It depends on the amount of money that you make within the business, how much the bottom line is. But it can be a very lucrative profession, depending on the state that you're in and what you choose to kind of concentrate in. But it's you can make as much as they're accountant millionaires, and if you're thinking about it, you can also start your own firm. You know what I mean? So when you're starting a firm, then the amount of money that you make is based strictly on your own hustle. So it's I can't really give you a number, but it's if you want to make a lot of if you want to be in a position financially where you don't have to worry about things, then accounting is definitely a profession that that will help that. Obviously it's going to be what you'll get out what you put in, but you're not going to be. I think you'll be good. You'll be fine.
Okay. Briefly, because we're nearing the end. What is a controller? By the way, CFO is Chief Financial Officer. For anybody who didn't know what that acronym stood for, what is a controller?
Controller is basically like it's like the director of finance or director of the accounting department. Mm-hmm. So it's like the head of, and this could vary a little bit based on what company you're with. You have to understand that the positions are dictated by whoever's in charge in HR.
As in the titles.
As in the titles, yes. Yeah. The titles, sometimes the titles have a certain pay grade associated with it, which is all determined. It's not like a one set hierarchy for all companies. It's not that way. Each company is different, but essentially your controller is responsible for all of the accounting in that department, that region, that company, depending on what's under you. So typically the controller reports to the CFO. So if you think about it that way, it's your CEO, your CFO, which has multiple reports under him or her. The controller is right under the CFO typically.
I got you. So you also mentioned private practice. who are they working for? If you're a private, I mean, you're clearly doing the accounting for your company. Are these the contractors that you're referring to, or what are they doing? What's an accountant who has their own private practice, their own firm doing?
It depends on what type of practice that they have, right? If you can, I know some accountants who dabble in a little bit of everything, right? They're a one-stop shop. So if I have, sorry.
So they're working for as a consultant for other companies that don't necessarily have an accounting department. They're being outsourced. Is
That's
that
what
what
we
I'm hearing?
you can be a consultant and step in and perform the accounting duties for companies that don't have the bandwidth to do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You can concentrate on tax, right? Taxes change every 4 years.
Yeah.
So you need someone to be consistently up on the new tax laws in order to, get your best return, get your best, put you in the best position to, get your refund if that's what you need, or, roll forward your losses, whatever it is. So you can get a tax, you can get an audit, right? You can have your own auditing firm. Or what a lot of my fellow colleagues do when they start their own firm is they'll work mostly with smaller businesses, right? Because there are a lot of people who own barbershops, nail shops, or t-shirt companies, or dog grooming services, that know how to cut hair for dogs, but they don't know how to convert their shampoos into revenue, into an income statement. So there's some company, or some of my colleagues will help them with payroll, right? Because that's not always easy, because you have to deal with withholding taxes for employees, right? So it's typically it can be consulting, but you can also on top of that you can also file returns for people. You know what I mean? So it kind of depends on what you're comfortable doing. But like I said, I have a couple of colleagues that have a one-stop shop where I can do your payroll, I can do your taxes, I can be your step-in accountant. I can do all of that for a nominal fee.
How has being in this position impacted your personal life and how you see money and how you manage it?
Well, I've always been pretty conservative with money, and very financially conscious. Just because I and that may be why I thrive in the profession that I'm in, just because I don't like to spend money. I remember what it was like being broke, and I don't want to do that again. So I've always been conscious on the return on the money that I spend. And I mean, I didn't get cable until I was 28, 29 years old. Granted, I was an accountant at 22. You know what I mean? So,
but you didn't get cable until you were how old?
28, 29. It was a pretty long time ago, a long time before I actually got cable. Just because it wasn't a necessity. I didn't get my first. Well, no, I got my first car, I think maybe 4 or 5 years after I graduated. But yeah, I've always been pretty conscious of my finances, how I spend it, and the return that's going to come to me eventually, if there's any type of return. So I've always kind of had that personality to where I'm keeping track of I had there are a bunch of budget apps on your phone. I had a budget app, or I still have a budget app, so that I can track. Obviously, so I can track all my expenses and plan for, for a rainy day, or plan for a birthday, or plan for, Christmas or something like that. So that's always been there, which kind of makes it easier for me to then go and do that for another company and get paid for it.
Okay. So I hear the money management discussion, but obviously there's other aspects, especially when it comes to making money opposed to earning money and saving money, making money, stock market, investments, and things like that. Does an accountant need a financial advisor? Because you're talking about conservation. That's what I'm hearing is you're conserving your money, you're managing your money appropriately, you know how to do something with the money that you currently have. But I'm just curious, the other perspective and the other aspects that are significant to money that go beyond just the savings and the checking account.
Yeah, so there's there's that's the other side of the coin, right? Is it's not accounting, it's finance, right? So what you're talking about is, accountants tell you how you spent your money. People in finance tell you how to spend your money,
Yep.
right? So
You know how to spend your money.
well, I my degree is also in finance, so
Yeah. Yeah. What's the official college
yeah,
degree?
but,
You never officially said it. What was
finance and accounting.
Okay.
So I mean, the answer is yes. An accountant could use a financial advisor if said accountant isn't used to um, uh, trading, because we're not always, an auditor may not know the ins and outs, of the stock exchange.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not in there, you don't know what you don't know. And anytime that you're dealing with your money, you want to make sure that you make the smartest move possible, and often that includes gaining information or knowledge from somebody who has that knowledge. So the answer is yes. A financial or an accountant could use the services of a financial advisor. Those accountants that also have a degree in finance, maybe not so much, but that was a joke. But yeah, absolutely, 100%. And plus, I mean, like I said, you can always learn something new. Somebody who actually handles or is in that field can teach you something. You never know where your helping hand is going to come from, and you never know where you're going to get that next piece of information that's going to take you to the next level.
All right. Rapid questions. This is a segment in which I have enjoyed a lot. I've recently just started doing this. I didn't do this in my previous interviews, but this new season comes with new things and new ideas, and I'm loving the actual responses I've been getting from people. So it's just rapid, quick, concise answers. I mean, if you got to think about it, but keep the answer concise as possible. All right. You can trust me. Relax. We start off with the easy question. Yeah, we start off with the easy question. The easy question is, what's your favorite sport?
Football.
Say it again.
Football.
Okay.
Favorite sports, football. Favorite players, Barry Sanders.
Favorite book?
The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene.
Hey, I like that book. And for anybody who's listening to the title, it's misleading because the art of seduction allows you to truly understand how it's almost a book about selling at the same time.
Psychology, sociology.
Yeah. There's a lot in there. So you can go in there for the art of seduction in the way of trying to woo a person, but at the same time, you can also learn a lot of other tactics for selling, psychology, sociology of understanding people at the same time. Hobby. What's your favorite hobby?
Favorite hobby is flag football.
Yes, it is. And I refuse to be healthy, apparently, for any season for you. Who is the person you would speak to if you could speak to anyone in the world, dead or alive, not related to you?
Does the topic matter?
Nah, it's who's the person you want to talk to, dead or alive, period. They just can't be related to you.
Person that I would speak to, dead or alive, not related to me. I would have to say, dude, that's a good one. Warren Buffett. I love it. I'll be honest with you. I feel like I would love to talk to Warren Buffett, but if I could get, as long as he's not surly, dude looks surly, his partner, Charlie Munger, I would love to know what's going on with him. But I feel like he allows Warren to talk so much that I just think that Charlie got something locked away. Because, he's actually older. Charlie's about 97. Warren's 92. I thoroughly enjoy talking to people with gray hair. Man, the breadth of knowledge that they have, they're walking encyclopedias. And I can't remember where I heard it, but I don't know if this was an African proverb or something that said, anytime someone with gray hair dies, you lose an encyclopedia. I don't know
Yeah,
where I
that's
heard
a
that
proverb.
from.
That's an African proverb because,
Okay.
frankly, a lot of that history wasn't necessarily written. It was more of an oral history.
Right.
And so, unfortunately, when they weren't writing it down, they lost a lot of that history because people weren't necessarily passing it down properly at times. And plus, you just can't necessarily recall the memory that wasn't yours. The other question is, what position is a dream position for you?
What position is a dream position for me? That's easy. Krispy Kreme store owner. I want to sell donuts. Krispy Kreme donuts. They're delicious. I know that's left field. You said dream.
I did.
Dream doesn't have to be logical, right?
It doesn't.
I love Krispy Kreme donuts, man. I would sell Krispy Kreme donuts.
All right, so y'all don't know him like I do, and it really feel like he messing with me right now. But
no, it's serious. Krispy Kreme donuts, man. It's $1 million buy-in. I looked into it.
It's $1 million buy-in.
$1 million buy-in. I'm thinking about it, but yeah.
Whoa, that's crazy because I thought McDonald's is only 500,000, right? Unless it changed.
McDonald's is in Krispy Kreme's, man.
Yeah, but McDonald's should be doing better numbers than Krispy Kreme.
There's a lot more McDonald's too.
Your phone, your microphone is fading again.
There's a lot more McDonald's organizations and franchises as well. But Krispy Kreme will change your life, man.
I know. It'll ruin your life more than anything, actually.
Nobody makes it out alive, man.
This is accurate. All right. So last question of the rapid questions, which is, what's the change you want to see in the world?
Change I want to see in the world. Off the top of my head, is rapid, an increase in accountability. The change that I would like to see is for more people to take control of their own destiny. I think if we all are, we hold ourselves accountable, I think we can, it would help push your community, your city, your state, and the country forward in a way that yelling at people or asking others to do it won't. Off the top of my head.
I feel it. All right. Well, looking back at a younger version of yourself, what you got, man? What you gonna tell the younger version of you to make that person? And I'm not saying, I used to say, make them have an easier time getting to your world. Well, let's start there. What would you tell a younger version of yourself to help you get to your current position faster?
Just one thing. I think it's two. I think it's kind of
do two.
So I got three, right? And I'll try to be quick, right? Because so the one thing, well, there's three, but one of the things that college doesn't prepare you for is the politics of professional life, right? Just because you are the most prepared, just because you are the most qualified for a position, for a raise, does not necessarily mean that you're going to get it. The old cliche, it's not what you know, it's who you know, is very real. And it's just as important to sharpen your skills as an accountant, as a marketer, or whatever it is, as it is to learn how to interact with people and build long-lasting and meaningful relationships. Oftentimes, your success is going to be dictated by who you know and what relationships you may have. So one of the three things that I think that I would tell my younger self is once you when you're ready to enter into the professional world, you're going to need fans, right? You're going to need a people that will sing your praises when you're not around, because information detail that's given by a third party often holds more weight than it does if it's given first person, right? If I say if you meet me, for the first time, and I say, hey man, I'm Isaac. I'm a really smart guy. I really know accounting. I can do this X, Y, Z. You'll take that with a grain of salt. You maybe shake my hand and say, okay, well, we'll see if you have an accounting position available, right? But if one of your fraternal brothers, or somebody that say, hey, I know you have this accountant position open. This guy Isaac, man, I know him. He's a really smart guy, man. He knows accounting like the back of his hand. I think he would be a great fit. and you say, okay, but then you hear another guy say, hey, this guy named Isaac, I think he'll be a great fit for your position. It carries more weight, right? So the more fans that you have singing your praises, the greater your reputation is, because what you want is your reputation to precede you, right? Two, I'll be quick. The second is you need a mentor. Find someone who is doing what you want to do, and learn from the mistakes they made, and the lessons that they're willing to teach you. Right? They say that smart people learn from their own mistakes. Wise people learn from the mistakes of others. Mm-hmm. Right? Your mentor is going to be able to show you what pitfalls that may be ahead that you don't see. They'll be able to tell you the importance of politics, what to talk about, what not to talk about, who to talk to. They'll basically serve as like a guide. And unfortunately, nowadays, nobody does it by themselves. So that guide is definitely going to help speed up your career trajectory. And then the third thing I would say is get an advocate, right? When you're in the professional world, when new jobs come up, when new raises, you're not going to be in the room when it's being determined who should get them. What you need is an advocate, someone who is at a higher level to you that can advocate for you in those rooms that you're not in. So be quick. Those are the three things that I would probably tell my younger self that would help expedite, the process from, just starting out until now.
All right. Well, I think you answered the question of what could have helped you become where you are, will get to where you are now faster, as well as just how could you allow your younger self to become more successful. You answered both of those at the exact same time. So that's great. Are there any takeaways that you want to make sure you get off your chest that may not have come up in the middle of our conversation? Or what is something you want to leave with the audience?
I think back when I used to play football, my coaches always had a phrase, and it's not his phrase. Most, a lot of people say it, but it's you don't work, you don't eat, right? No matter what, you
don't grind, you don't shine. Sorry,
you don't shine. It's same variation, right?
No. Every time you don't eat, you don't work, you don't eat, you don't shine, you don't shine. That's always heard it. Keep going.
I said that to say that anything worth having, like I said already, has to be worth working for. Very rarely is your dream job just going to drop in your lap. When you stay ready, you never have to get ready. Mm-hmm. Make sure that at all points in time that you have your elevator speech ready. Make sure that you put yourself in a position to where when an opportunity arises, you can jump on it immediately. There is no substitute for hard work. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
All right. Well, I got several takeaways today because you said a whole lot of things, and I want to acknowledge some of the key things that were outstanding. First thing, outwork yourself, and anybody that wants to step up to the plate, be willing to accept the challenge and try your best to outwork them as well. And from what I'm hearing, he points out the importance and significance of working hard. And some people like work smarter, not harder. Nah, you got to do both. Work hard and work smart at the same time. And how has he shown you that he's working smart at the same time? If you want to earn more, learn more. He's working on building more skills in order to be able to acquire more funds later on down the line, because he's going to be able to take on those higher roles because he's acquired the skills, opposed to being a specialist only in one region of accounting. As he's mentioned, when you get in those larger companies, they can clearly put you in a little box and have you do that one thing, and you do not develop the other skills. So make sure you're working hard, but you're also working smart and doing it at the same time, not choosing which one you want to do alone. There's another thing that I really appreciated, which was you mentioned control your destiny, but you talked about how you control your destiny. You have to take control of your destiny. You have to make a decision about what your destiny is going to be. And you showed that when you were in the process of trying to transition out of physical therapy as the major into the position of accounting in life. And the interesting part was you said, first off, you acknowledge the fact that success leaves clues. I seen that over there. I like that over there. And I'm going to do that over there. And you committed. Once you figured out what you wanted, once you figure out what was interesting and passionate to you, you decided I'm going to go all in. And that's a part of life. That's a part of controlling your destiny. A part of controlling your destiny is locking in and doing that which your heart enjoys. I haven't heard a single moment where it didn't seem like his vision was disconnected at any point outside of the really, really, really random Krispy Kreme's moment. But nonetheless, everything is about locking in. I'm sure it's deeper stories. So I appreciate your time, bro, man. This was so much fun, bro.
It was. I had a blast.
Absolutely. And like that, you know, 2 of these. Whew,
right.
God, bro. Yeah. So